So I have a full website design package, and that's currently at 5,000 US. If we add branding on, that's another 2,500. And then I do VIP days, which is 1,800 US. The main thing that has been working for me lately is actually participating in online bundles and summits. And I give them for free as part of the business bundle. And then anyone who signs up for the bundle gets access to that course for free. That gets them onto my emailing list. It's not necessarily for everyone. The whole sales thing can be a bit off-putting, but if you're willing to work past that and work on those areas that may not come naturally, then the results are worth it. So,
okay, Jessica, can you share with me, what exactly were you doing before you became a website designer? And did you have any website building experience back in the day?
Yeah, sure. So I actually used to work for a bank. I was there for almost 10 years before starting my business. Definitely not in the website design realm, but before actually starting my business, I had built a blog on WordPress, and I blogged for probably 6 or 7 years, I think. When I got married, I also built a website for our wedding, since we were getting married overseas, and I thought that's an easy way to be able to share details with family and friends, so they could easily see links of what to do in the hotel and everything. And way before that, and before I even started working at the bank as well, my ex studied website design. So he did it professionally, which gave me a lot of imposter syndrome early on. Well, he studied it formally, but I was actually just as good at reading the code as he was and understanding it. So had that background way back then.
Interesting. Okay, and then what made you determine, I want to leave this bank, I want to become a website designer? What was happening in life then exactly that kind of gave you that idea?
I actually had my little boy, so he's now 6.5. And just after I had him, I was kind of struggling a bit with being stuck at home, but I knew going back to work wouldn't be very flexible. I knew how hard it was for the team to be able to get leave and everything. And yeah, I kind of just fell into it. I realized I wanted to start something that had more flexibility around family. And I initially thought I was going to study and be a VA, and realized I liked the design part of it so much more, and kind of just went from there.
Okay, cool. Okay, and then so you've decided to have this baby, want to have a work from home job, and then what do you do to make it happen? What happened then?
Well, I originally found an online course that I did, and that kind of led to your course, Square Secrets, just after. So yeah, it kind of went from there.
Yeah, okay, cool. So you take the course, and then what were you hoping to learn, or what did you feel like you didn't know that you needed help with, if that makes sense?
As I mentioned, with my ex actually studying website design at uni, I kind of felt like, hey, you kind of can't just dive into it without something. And I had no idea about website strategy or anything like that. The design side of things, you can jump into SQUARESPACE and figure out the tools. And I've always been a creative, so I already had a background in all sorts of design stuff. But the strategy side of it, and I don't know, kind of overcoming imposter syndrome, I think, was a big part of why I jumped in, and kind of went from there.
Yeah, okay, cool. And then tell me about, so you take the course, you figure out how to design websites and everything, you get a little bit over the imposter syndrome, and then talk to me about landing your first paid client. How exactly did you figure that out?
My first paid client was from a Facebook group, and it was just doing some edits on her website, and not as easy and straightforward as I expected, because I had no experience with the actual running a design business side of things, how to charge. So I charged nowhere near enough at all for the amount of work it was. And my processes weren't that down pat at that time. So there was a lot more back and forth than there needed to be. And she was challenging in the fact that she didn't value design. So she was very pushy around the whole, this is too expensive, even though I was only charging $25 an hour or something silly like that covered nothing. And within weeks of doing the updates for her, she went and changed it all anyway, and it looked just as equally horrendous as before. So it wasn't the greatest experience then. But from there, I worked with a business coach. So my next client was actually that business coach. We traded services, and she was brilliant to work with. I was able to test the end-to-end design process and kind of smooth things over. And because She was doing coaching for me. She was able to give some great feedback around the processes, and her area of expertise was helping mums find clients for their business. So yeah, I kind of helped a lot at that point.
Okay, good. Okay, so you found the first one through a Facebook group, and then tell me about, you have developed some really interesting marketing strategies. Can you tell me about what is the main way that you get clients now? What's the main marketing strategy for you at the moment?
I get a lot of clients from referrals, but the main thing that has been working for me lately is actually participating in online bundles and summits. I have a couple of low price point courses around like basically some of the website strategy side of things. And I give them for free as part of the business bundle. And then anyone who signs up for the bundle gets access to that course for free. That gets them onto my emailing list. And email marketing is the one marketing thing I am actually somewhat consistent with. So I do email most weeks. And just nurturing people over time. I find it's a much slower process, but it suits my introvert self a lot more. And just, I find the clients I've gotten from it have been really awesome. It's because I've been nurturing them for so long. They know me, they know how I work, they understand my design style, and it just makes the whole process a lot smoother.
Totally. I love that. That's so good. Okay, so I know people are going to be curious about this bundle thing. If someone's like, I want to do that, I want to create some low-cost offer which I can put into these bundles. How do you find the bundles? Do the bundles find you? What kind of bundles are they exactly? And then how do you get their email from that as well?
Yeah, the bundles are pretty much bundles of business courses. I'm in a couple of Facebook groups where people share about their bundles that they have upcoming, and from there I find out about a few. But now that I've done so many, I also have people approaching me and they'll just send me an email asking or telling me about what their bundle is about and asking if I want to be part of it, and I can apply from there. There's one Facebook group, I think it's called Bundle of Bundles or something like that, and like that's pretty much the whole point of that group, is to connect people who want to participate in bundles. And from there, everyone basically promotes the bundle. So if there's 20 people participating, those 20 people are all promoting the bundle to get people onto the main mailing list or signed up for the bundle. And then once they're signed up for the bundle, then they basically get access to a website page that has all the offers listed. And people can click from there to your offer and purchase it. And when they purchase, they're purchasing it for free as part of the bundle. So they'll usually have a coupon code to be able to enter for it, but that adds them onto your email list from there.
That's so good. Okay, good. And then tell me about this whole like email nurturing. You say almost every week you're sending an email. What exactly is happening in those emails? What are you sending?
Some days it's just a bit of an update as to what's going on, projects I'm working on. My next email will be sharing one of my client projects that we've just launched a week ago, last week. So it varies week to week. Sometimes it will just be little tips, just trying to think. I don't really give it much thought when I send out the emails. But if I ever get stuck, then I'm part of Liz Wilcox's email marketing membership, where she sends out weekly ideas for topics. And I rarely use her emails, but it's so good to be able to look at the archives and find something if I feel that creative block where the idea just isn't there. But like I said, it's rare. I'm an ideas person, so there's almost always something there.
Yeah. I think once you get into the content creation, then you realize like I just have a list like massive in my phone of all of my ideas. So you start seeing content ideas everywhere you look. Okay, and then are you doing like a hard pitch for the services in there, or how does that, or is it just like a mention of like, hey, we can work together, or I have some spots coming up, or like what exactly, how is it turning into them booking you from the emails?
It's a mix of all of those. So sometimes I'll just mention I was working on a full website design project and I'll link full website design project, or I was working on a VIP day and I'll link to that page on my website. So it's just kind of naturally mentioning it as part of whatever story I'm telling. Other times it's saying, hey, I have X spots available for this month or for this quarter. If you want to get in on that, here's the link to book. I also have a section at the bottom of my emails in the footer where it links to all my different services as well. So people can click there, and that's on pretty much every email at this point, except some of the automated ones. I don't know if I ever added it back into my footer. for the welcome sequence, but it's there for most of them.
Yeah.
And then sharing case studies and things like that. I try and weave it in different ways, so it's not all the same hard selling all the time, where it feels more natural and nice.
Yeah. I think this is a really good example of, as you say, you've been in business now for like 5 or 6 years. And so this is a good example of someone who's like, you've started, and I do actually want to talk about your marketing strategies that you used before, but then you started doing these bundles and you started doing the email marketing and everything. And also a huge amount comes from referrals. And anytime someone says to me that a lot of their clients come from referrals, it always is an indication to me that they're doing an incredible job of serving their clients, because people only refer good designers. And so, yeah, it's like once you have done it for a while and you just have a backlog of work and you start building an audience, like it does actually make the marketing side of it a lot easier. Can you tell me about going back like a couple of years then? What was this always your marketing strategy? Was there something else that you had to do sort of, I guess, in between that like first client and like where we're at now? Was there something else happening, or was it this the whole time, or?
Well, I did market a lot more heavily at the start of my business. So pretty much email marketing has been consistent from the start, except for when I went on maternity leave the second time. There was about a year or so where I didn't email. But before that, I was blogging consistently. And I did that for the first 2 years or so of my business. Then I was part of a membership and the Facebook group there. I got a lot of clients from that just because I was in there all the time. So that can work really well if you have the right environment or the right group. I'm not a very salesy person. I don't enjoy the sales part. And if I realized before starting a business that sales would be a part of it, I probably wouldn't have gone down this path, but I'm glad I did. I'm definitely glad I did, but yeah, that was a big reservation for me right from the start.
Yeah. I love how you also mentioned you're an introvert. I feel like these are a lot of like very introvert friendly type like marketing strategies which you've picked. Were there anything where you're just like, I cannot, like there's a marketing strategy where you're like, this is not for me?
Yeah, I've tried networking events, gone to a couple over the time, but they're really not for me. They're a bit too people-y for me to go to a lot of the time. Like they can be fun and everything, but yeah, it's a bit too full on sometimes. But yeah, I definitely have picked introvert friendly ways and made it work for me.
That makes sense. Okay, good. Another thing which I wanted to chat about, you mentioned mat leave and also that you started the business when you had a child. If someone's listening to this, a lot of my students are in the exact same boat. So they're going to want to know, like, how do I plan a mat leave? How did you do it? Are there any tips and advice that you have? And yeah, how did it work with your business?
I actually pretty much just disappeared and ghosted. I did it really badly because I had some challenges when I was pregnant the second time, especially juggling a kiddo who has extra needs already. And then some health stuff come up. So my mat leave pretty much started 3 months into my pregnancy. And then I think I took just over a year off, where I was still staying in touch a little bit, but nothing like before. So if I was doing it again, I would definitely mention probably about halfway through, hey, this is coming up that I'm going to be having a baby. You can use it as a really great marketing tool and say, this is my availability before I'm going on maternity leave. If you want to get in before it, do so now, sort of thing. So you could actually use it to your advantage. Yes, definitely. And you don't want to be doing projects right up to your due date. So you'll likely have that set fixed date that you want to end client work on. So definitely a sense of urgency.
Yeah, totally. Tell me about also, I would love to know, like, in terms of managing the work that you're doing while you have 2 young children now, what does that look like for you day to day?
It's an interesting juggle. So most of my work at the moment is actually in the evening. But yeah, a lot of my work tends to be once the kids have gone to bed. Usually I'll jump into whatever project I'm working on at the time, or do some sort of marketing stuff. I more have a flow like throughout the week where like Mondays I tend to have for emails. And then I try and do client work more on the Tuesday to Thursday. Fridays I try and have off, or they will end up being catch-up work days. If I need to do calls, I tend to do them either in the evenings after the kids are asleep, like now, or sometimes I can get away with calls during the day. My son's now in school, so that makes it a bit easier, but my toddler still interrupts a bit. Good thing she's cute. Everyone loves seeing her pop up on the calls and everything. But yeah, she will come and join us quite often, and she'll usually just be playing in the background, and there'll be a mass of toys and everything. So I'm lucky that I work mostly with women, and a lot of them have kids or know people who have kids and everything. So they're really understanding of having a toddler running around in the background.
Okay, and then you also, so you're in Australia. Can you tell me about what percentage of your clients are in Oz as well versus the rest of the world? And how do you find that with like the time zone situation?
Yeah. So I actually have very few Australian clients. I've only worked with 3 Australians, I think. So I haven't ended up with much from here. Most of my clients are in either the US, UK, or Canada. The time zones can be a bit challenging sometimes, but I think it helps because I do have that flexibility that I can take calls during the day or in the evenings. So it kind of helps with the time zones. So this time of night is great for all my UK clients. And then in the mornings tends to work out pretty well for my US clients who it's the evening for them. So it can take a bit of back and forth, but I use Acuity to schedule calls. So basically my availability is there and they can choose what time zone they're in to manage it that way. Or if we're manually going back and forth, I just Googled a time zone converter website and dump the time zone into there and kind of work out from there and see what happens. But the booking calendar saves a bucket load of time and back and forth. So it's always best when people book through that.
Yeah, definitely. And was it intentional to get international clients? Like I know a lot of people, they want to get clients abroad. And so they're trying to figure out, how do I get international clients? Like, did you intend for that to happen? Did it just kind of happen? Do you know why that happened?
When I first started in Facebook groups, getting to know people that way, most of them were either US or UK based. The membership I was part of was UK based. So a lot of my clients were from the UK based on that. I've always kind of had this thought that a lot of Australians don't value design and creativity as much. It's probably all in my head. I fully acknowledge that because, hey, I'm a creative person and I know lots of creative people, but a lot of business owners I know are a lot price conscious, a bit stingy sometimes. So I kind of had that thought that it's not valued here. So I kind of intentionally went into that looking overseas for clients based on the fact that everywhere else seems much more open to valuing or to the value of good design. That it's not necessarily the case that people here don't value it. It's just that was my mindset going in. So I kind of always looked for overseas.
Yep. I think that's interesting. I think a lot of people have that same mindset, like, oh, where I'm from, people don't pay as much or whatever. But then over time, I think it is often not always, but often a mindset thing. And then you end up getting people from your own country and then you're like, oh, maybe I was wrong. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Wherever the clients come from, that's totally fine. And as you said, like, yeah, you've managed. So tell me about how many actually calls you have to do in a project, because some people are nervous about the whole, like, do I have to constantly, like, every day meet my client or whatever, especially if they're in a different time zone?
Yeah. So I usually have a sales call to start with so we can get to know each other and for me to be able to see if it's a good fit just as much for as it is for my clients to see that it's a good fit. From there, I have a strategy call before we start. So that's usually an hour and a half or so for that second call. As we're doing the design work, I usually will send Loom videos instead of having other calls, but occasionally I have clients that are very visual and can't picture things in the same way. So we'll sometimes jump on a call and do edits that way because it's a lot quicker for both of us and it's easier to articulate sometimes. And then at the end, I teach them how to use their website on a call, and that's usually the calls that I'll have throughout. So sales call, strategy call, and lesson call.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Free. And then how long do you tend to have the projects go over?
Yeah. So I only work with one client at a time, similar to how you had your packages set up when you started the 2-week website. And if I do branding as well, then I add an extra week on. Otherwise, I have VIP days as well. One question I get about VIP days is how do you manage it for overseas clients? And I usually just split it in 2 days. So it's 2 half days back to back. And it works really well because honestly, sitting there for 7 hours or so in one hit is a lot for me, and it's probably a lot for my clients to respond to emails and stuff like that too. So splitting it up gives them a chance to give feedback while I sleep, and then when I dive back into it, I've got all the notes there ready to go. So it's worked so well.
That's really good. Okay, yeah. Tell me about your offers and also your price points on the different ways that people can work with you.
So I have a full website design package, and that's currently at $5,000 US. That's the 2-week website, and if we add branding on, that's another $2,500 if we do that as well, and that makes it the 3-week project. And then I do VIP days, which is $1,800 US that I charge for those, and they're 7 hours of design time plus the strategy call, and I think it's 1 month post email support where I answer questions about things, and sometimes we'll send little training videos and things like that.
So you have these like lower ticket items, which people are purchasing through these bundles typically. And then that actually leads into your clients. And you definitely have like your pricing, especially like VIP discs and everything, like you are doing very well on the pricing and like towards the higher end. Some people would think, oh, well, if someone purchases a super low price bundle, then they're not going to want a high price like web design package. Have you found that to be the case, or any thoughts on that?
So I find some of the people who purchase through the bundles do want a DIY, but quite often they realize there's a lot of stuff in those bundles for them to go through, and there's a lot of courses they don't want to spend the time on. And if you're there nurturing the person over time and they realize, hey, my website is one of those things that I don't want to spend the time on, I'm not going to actually go in and do this course, then I'm the person they're going to think of, because I've been showing up consistently in their inboxes, sharing value, giving them lots of tips, there to support them in whatever they need along the way. So I find you can nurture them into that sort of relationship over time. There are always going to be a lot of people who sign up for the bundles who never look at the courses, because let's be real, if there's 20 courses in a bundle and you sign up for everything, there's no way you're ever going to do them all. Yeah. But I find there is that small percentage who don't want to do it themselves and do want that extra support. So yeah.
That's all I need. Just a small percentage, not all of them have to buy.
Exactly.
So otherwise you'd be way too booked.
Yeah, I think at this point I have almost 2,000 people across various courses. There's no way I could work with 2,000 people, especially if I'm only working with one client at a time. So I definitely don't want everyone to turn into clients from that.
Yes, definitely. That's true. Tell me about the hours worked versus like earnings versus your previous job. Can you go into that a bit?
So I work around 20 to 25 hours a week because I'm working a lot in the evenings. That's all the time you have, really. And my income is actually pretty similar to what it was when I actually went back to work. I did briefly go back from the first maternity leave, and I'm earning the same as that in similar sort of hours, probably less hours to be honest. And I don't have to commute 4 hours a day. I don't have to follow everyone's rules and deal with all the office drama and everything. It's just much more flexibility within that time. So even though I'm working slightly less hours, being able to earn just as much is awesome. And having that flexibility around family, or if we want to go do something like tomorrow, we're going out for the day for an outing, I'm pulling my son out of school so we can do it and things like that. Having that flexibility is just so much better than going to work for someone else.
I love that. So happy to hear it. That's incredible. Can you tell me about, people wonder, if you, imagine yourself back at that office and then you're thinking, what is it like to work for yourself? How do you answer that now? Like, what is it like to actually have your own job versus work for someone else?
Awesome, in a word. I love it. It's not necessarily for everyone. As I mentioned, the whole sales thing can be a bit off-putting, but if you're willing to work past that and work on those areas that may not come naturally, then the results are worth it. So be open to working on the mindset side of things, I think. And if you're willing to put yourself out there and do that work, then definitely the payoff is so great. The flexibility and the fact that anything you earn and the better you do is going to you is just so much better than going into someone else's pocket.
that was a huge part of my motivation too. It was like, I felt like when I worked other places, I would really put in a lot of time and effort and go above and beyond. It's like, there was really not much of a difference to like what you saw at the end of that. Whereas when it is your own business, I think that's a huge, personally for me, also a huge motivator too.
You definitely don't get the payoff for the hard work when you're working for someone else.
Yeah.
Definitely not in the same way.
Absolutely. Okay. Can you also share with me? So you have a Facebook group. We will link that in the description below, actually, because I think it's really interesting for people to see. Can you tell me about why did you start it and sort of like what's the purpose of it in your business now?
That was when I was working with the business coach. That was one of her strategies that worked really well for her, was starting a Facebook group for clients. I've had it for years now, and I don't use it as much as I used to be honest. But basically, it's a group that people can come into if they have website design questions, especially around Squarespace or WordPress, because they're the systems that I know and can help with. And it's just a way to be able to nurture people in a different way. So I invite all of my students into the groups as well. So if they have questions about the courses that they sign up for, then I can help with them in there, and that can actually be good for marketing sometimes, because if they're asking questions, you can mention, hey, it's from this course and things like that for anyone else who's interested. The purpose of that was nurturing people, being able to go live in there so people can see my face and get to know me that way, being able to share tips and things like that. It just gives that extra platform if people aren't checking their emails regularly, which not everyone does, especially if you get a lot of emails. So it's just that extra touch point, I think.
I love that. Yeah, I can assume it's a really good relationship builder, actually. That would be my. And then can you tell me about, from all your clients, do they tend to be within a specific industry or niche, or is it pretty broad? Or how did you think about the whole like niching question and which type of clients you want to be attracting?
Well, I mostly work with coaches and consultants. There's been some counselors, there's been a lot of coaches, an email marketing consultant. So it's kind of very much ended up coaching and consultants in that area. And I think going into it, I knew I wanted to work with other online businesses, because that was what I was creating. It was what I understood and could best support. It was partially intentional, but then it kind of just happened that that's also who was in all the groups that I was in when I was first building those relationships. The niching side of things, I've never really given too much thought. It's just kind of been the environments I've been in anyway, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, there's a lot of pink happening on your website, so I can imagine that's attracting all the ladies.
That's true.
That's true.
But that was just because I liked the color.
Yeah,
and I had a top that was in that color. It worked.
Yeah, so all the female coaches and consultants, perfect. And then have you found, is there anything, you do a lot of strategy in your packages as well. Can you tell me about like what that is exactly? Because I think this is also a factor in why you can charge really great prices, is because there is a bit more of the strategy side to it. Can you tell me what exactly that entails?
At the start of projects, I'll usually send out a design questionnaire, and that goes through all the typical questions around like who you work with, who your competitors are, what you like design-wise and what you don't like. So there is a little part about the preferences design-wise, but a lot of it is around like what your goals are, what you're working towards in the next X period of time. And then I'll go and do research around their competitors before we jump on our strategy call, so that the design brief is the first part of our process. I'll look at the different types of the publications and things that their ideal clients would be looking at and things like that, to get an idea of visually what they might be drawn to and what might be off-putting. And if all their competitors use one particular color or one particular design, how can we make things different so my clients stand out from that? And really focusing in on what their goals are and talking through that. We talk a bit about blogging or content creation overall, and if they're showing up everywhere online but nothing on their website, like how can we bring it all into that online home base for them, because then they can be found on Google. It's that nurture point for everything at that point, if we can get some of that stuff that's just floating around everywhere into that one spot. So we'll go through a lot of that sort of thing. We'll have the strategy call at the start, and then when I'm designing, I think back to everything we've gone through. So the notes from the design brief tend to be like 10 pages of printed notes in the end. Then I go and add my notes in. So they're quite detailed, and I do all that research. So by the end, I have a lot of paper floating around my desk from it all, but I know that I've designed something that's going to suit the purpose of what and the goals the person is working towards. So that's important to me.
Yeah, I love that. It's really cool. I can imagine you didn't have all this together at the very beginning. It's been like developed over time because that is very thorough. I love that.
Even now I go and add questions into the design brief every so often. If I'm in a Facebook group or something and I see someone's like, has a problem with a design process, and I'm like, oh, that could actually be a good question to weave in. Or if there's a question that isn't really getting good information, then I'll delete it and things like that. So even now, almost 6 years in, I'm still tweaking it, but like it's definitely evolved over time.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I also think it's really great because you've been in this for such a long time. You would also have some sort of concept. So people are always nervous, like, oh, is it too saturated? Can you say, like, are there less projects now than there were 6 years ago? Or what has your experience been in terms of the whole, like, is the market saturated question?
I don't think so, because there are a lot of bad websites out there and a lot of people that need support. And I'm not able to do it all. And even the designers I know, like with the amount of bad websites out there and the amount of new people starting businesses, there's always going to be demand for it. And yeah, there might be a bit less, like a few less inquiries now compared to a couple of years ago because of the economy everywhere and people are struggling with cost of living and everything. But you just evolve your packages to suit that and what you offer. Like VIP days are great for that because it's quick, it's more cost effective than full design projects and things like that. So you can work with it. It just takes being a bit creative and open to changing things up and trying new things.
Yes, I think that's such a good point. I've heard a few people speak about that actually, is like in those years where, I mean, the economy and cost of living and everything, it's like 1 year this, the next year that. And so it's just like, and recessions, or I think it's like every 3 years or something is a recession. Don't quote me on that. That might not be exactly. I remember reading that somewhere. And so they're actually like such a common thing. And so it's like, it's just gonna like, there's ebbs and flows to it, but overall, yeah, I agree. There's still plenty of work in the market. And you're totally right. Is that like thinking about what is happening in the world and what offer can I put together? And again, in terms of like profitability, I would imagine, I don't know, do you know, like in terms of ROI on your time, is it like much more worth to do a VIP day than a full design package, or do they roughly come out to the same in the end? Or
a VIP day probably is more profitable, but doing projects start to finish is so rewarding. So it kind of has that trade-off as well.
Yeah, it's so much fun to start something from scratch and really like, or see someone's awful first website and then completely do another one. It's very rewarding, I agree.
And even if you transform a website on a VIP day and it looks completely different, you've still seen the back end of the site that's nowhere near as neat and all the extra pages and the things that aren't working properly on the back end and the tech that's set up wrong and things like that. So like, a VIP day, you're kind of limited by what your client is wanting for the day. So you don't always get to fix all the things you know are an issue behind the scenes.
Yeah. Can you tell me about, so a lot of people are very curious about VIP days. Can you tell me about like, what do you typically do in a VIP day and how is that different than like a full design package?
Typically they'll be whatever my client needs. So a lot of the time I'll be refreshing an existing website. So it might be changing out branding colors or changing the layout of different things. Other days it might be creating a full basic website. So there's a couple of projects I've done where it's been 2 or 3 pages. So it's a pretty simple site to bring together and I'll get that done in a day. Sometimes it's creating a really long sales page and going really in depth for one particular goal like that. Other times it's working on more of the SEO stuff and some of the behind the scenes sort of things. So you don't see very much visual transformation on the website, but it's much better on the back end SEO wise and making sure everything's set up wise. So it can vary quite a lot as to what we're doing on the day. So I think that's what makes them so fun sometimes, because it is different every time.
Keeps it interesting and entertaining for you as a designer. Yeah, totally. Okay, good. Okay, can you also share with me You've built an incredible business. It has been a very sustainable business for a long time for you. If someone else is new to being a designer, what would you recommend that you would like, things you wish you knew, I guess?
I think the biggest thing is think of your strengths and what you enjoy doing and make your business work around what you're good at, your lifestyle, and how your life is now, because otherwise it's just another job you're creating. You really want it to work for where you are and what you enjoy, so that you show up better, you market the way you want to do, it suits your introvertness or extrovertness, and it just makes it so much more fun.
Okay, I love that. Also, can you tell me, for someone who's on the fence about taking one of my courses, what would you say? You've done them, you've seen them, the inside of them. What exactly, were they helpful? Were they not helpful? What would you say?
I've done both of your courses, so Square Secrets and Square Secrets Business. And honestly, starting out, they were the best investments I made in myself and my business, because you go really in depth overall with a lot of different information, first around Squarespace and how to design a successful website. But then in Square Secrets Business, there's the whole actually running a business side of things. And it just helps set you up for success with all the templates and resources in there. You should streamline that learning process. You're not having to figure it all out on your own. And when you can cut that time down and just learn things a lot quicker, you can go do the thing a lot quicker. So you can just get out there and do the thing you love a lot quicker and easier.
That's amazing. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So good, right? So I hope my past student Jessica's story gives you a little bit of the feeling that you can do this too. Now, Jessica has clearly got down an incredible marketing strategy to find web design clients. But do you have one of those strategies yet? If not, I have the perfect quiz for you. It's called Which Client Finding Method Matches Your Personality Type? And in just a few short seconds, it will tell you the exact tailor-made marketing strategy that you will actually enjoy doing, even if you're an introvert like Jessica. You can find the quiz over at paigebrunton.com/quiz. And then after you pick that marketing strategy, however, you're not quite done yet. You'll also need to figure out your pricing and figuring out how to improve your design skills and a few more things in order to build a successful business. So watch this video next and I'll break down for you how to build a successful web design business in just 3 months.